Senator Rand Paul's run for the White House focuses a lot of speculation among political pundits these days, but the Republican senator from Kentucky says he's in this race to stay. Senator Paul is joining us here live. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk politics, your race for the White House in a few moments. Let's get your reaction, first of all, to the president's decision today to a reversal. Earlier, all U.S. troops basically were going to be out of Afghanistan by the end of next year. He says 10,000 going to remain next year, 5,500 the year after. It's going to wind up costing U.S. taxpayers $15 billion a year to keep those troops there. Good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a mistake. It's also not what our founding fathers intended. Our founding fathers intended that when we were to go to war, that Congress would debate this, and this would be approved or disapproved by Congress. I don't know what our mission is. I would have voted for the original mission to go after bin Laden and those who attacked us on 9/11. We have bin Laden. We have the people who attacked us on 9/11. What is our mission? To build a nation? Well, frankly, we're not very good at building nations, and I'm not for having our military stay indefinitely in Afghanistan to build a nation.
The mission, presumably, is to make sure the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or ISIS in this particular case don't take over Afghanistan, from which they could build terrorist plots to do what they did on 9/11.
Why don't the local people defend themselves against the Taliban?
They're obviously not yet capable, so the U.S. is being asked to stay there and train them and equip them.
How long? It's been a decade. You know, we've spent...
It's been 14 years.
Yeah, more than a decade. We've spent more in Afghanistan using equivalent dollars than we did in the Marshall Plan. How much time and how much money is it going to take? I think people will not stand up and defend themselves until they're asked to. And I think the people who live in Afghanistan should stand up and say, do you want to let the Taliban, these thugs, run you over, or are you willing to stand up and fight? And you know what? I think they would stand up and fight, and we can aid them in a way, but I don't think we need to have troops there.
So you would get out right away?
Yeah, I don't think we need to be in Afghanistan.
Immediately?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some other issues. A little controversy. Hillary Clinton criticizing your comments about same-sex rights in the workplace. You were asked if LGBT employees should be allowed to sue if they were fired over their sexual orientation. And you said, I think really the things you do in your house, if you could just leave those in your house and it wouldn't have to be part of the workplace to tell you the truth. And then you said, I think society is rapidly changing, that if you are gay, there are plenty of places that will hire you. So the criticism is that you're preventing these people from going to court, if you will, if they are fired or terminated or exploited because of their sexual orientation.
You know, I don't think anybody should be fired for being gay. I do also, though, believe that your personal life should be personal and shouldn't affect anyone firing you. So I don't think the decision whether to hire or fire you should be based on things from your personal life. So when I say that it should remain in your house, yeah, I don't think it should be part of the decision-making of the business. So I might have been able to word it better, but I don't think it should enter into the decision.
So how would you have worded it? Because the implication is, let's say you're gay, and your employees don't like the fact you're gay, so they fire you. Should that employee be allowed to go to court and sue? If you're an excellent employee, you haven't done anything wrong, the only thing the employer doesn't like is you're gay, shouldn't that employee have a right to go to court?
I don't think that anybody should be fired for being gay, and I don't think that their personal lives should enter into whether we hire or fire anyone. Whether or not that should be a federal law, I think that these things should be decided at the state level. When our country was founded, we said that most criminal justice and most civil action would be performed at the local level. The federal government didn't have anything to do with it. So I don't think the federal government should weigh in on things like this. It should be decided state by state, and if states want to make that an action for cause, that's fine. I do worry about a workplace, though, where every sort of classification of person then becomes something where, oh, I lost my job. Maybe I'll sue because I also happen to be gay.
But if you could prove it was because the employer hates gays.
I know. It's always a he said, she said. Nobody puts signs up saying that. And if they do, then I think you would have an action or a cause for action. What I'm saying is that I think it should not enter into the workplace in the sense that you shouldn't be hired or fired because you're gay.
Let's talk a little bit about your quest to become the Republican presidential nominee. Last quarter, you raised $2.5 million. That's down from $7 million the quarter before. Is the money drying up?
The interesting thing is we've raised about $20 million between us and our super PAC, so that's not an insignificant amount.
How much is the super PAC, and how much is?
I think it's. I don't know the exact number. It might be 14 and 6, something like that.
14 for the super PAC.
Yeah, no, 14 for us and 6 for the super PAC. But and that's an approximation. I don't think all the reports have come out. I do think, though, that raising $20 million is not an insignificant amount of money. Also, we have about 150,000 donors, so this is a significant movement. In Iowa, we have chairmen for all 99 counties. We have 600 precinct chairmen. So we do get a little bit prickly and annoyed when people are saying, well, didn't Ray only raise 2.5? Why is he in the race? Well, really, to put it in perspective, we've raised 20 million, have 150,000 donors. We also have something significant to add. Right now, everybody's talking about no-fly zone over Syria and Iraq. Hillary Clinton's for it. Most of the Republicans are for it. I think it's the world's dumbest idea and a recipe for disaster and a recipe for war. If I'm not in the race, that voice doesn't get heard, but a lot of Americans are with me and think we need a more prudent foreign policy and would prefer not to have another world war.
This issue, the no-fly zone, you're with the president. He doesn't support a no-fly zone. You're with Bernie Sanders at the same time. Does that make you feel at all uncomfortable?
Well, I'm a fiscal conservative, and neither one of them are fiscal conservatives, but I think you can be a fiscal conservative and also one who thinks less intervention is a good idea. I'm against the president in the sense that the president and Hillary Clinton have wanted to be involved in that civil war from the beginning. I stood up to the president and said I don't want to bomb Assad because I think that'll make ISIS stronger. I stood up against the president and Hillary Clinton and said I don't want to send arms in there to fight against Assad because that might create a space for radical Islam. And sure enough, that's what happened. So I wouldn't say it as simple as me supporting them, but on the no-fly zone, right now Russia has been invited by Syria and by Iraq to fly over their countries. They currently are flying over there. If you create a no-fly zone in a space where Russia's already flying, you're essentially saying we're going to shoot down Russian aircraft. This is something we spent 70 years trying to avoid, was an altercation with Russia. So it's a big mistake and a very naive approach to say we want a no-fly zone over there.
On the cash issue, the money you have, how much cash on hand do you have right now?
$2 million on hand, and even if we raise not a penny more, we'd have enough. But we continue to raise money, and actually it's gone up some since the last debate as well. There is a movement out there. In fact, when you poll me against Hillary Clinton, we lead her among independents in 5 of the battleground states. So really, we think among the Republicans, we have a better chance of beating Hillary Clinton than any other Republican on
stage. But to beat Hillary Clinton, you got to first get the Republican nomination. I put some numbers up. Our new polls in Nevada, South Carolina, among the first 4 contests in the country. Right now in Nevada, you're at 2%. Right now in South Carolina, you're at 4%. You're not doing much better in Iowa or New Hampshire, according to recent polls. The first 2 contests, what's going on?
The interesting thing about the polls is sometimes they have about 200 people polled. The standard of error is plus or minus 5%.
This is a CNN ORC poll.
Oh, well, then if it's CNN, of course.
It's the gold standard. But it's consistent with other mainstream polls.
But most of the polling have a plus or minus 4 or 5 standard points of error, which means could be my 5 is 10 or it could be 0, even according to what the pollsters are saying. What I would say is that when you look at all of these polls, the first question they ask is, are you decided? And still 2/3 of the people say they're not decided. Then they ask you, well, who would you vote for if you had to? So this is a vote or a poll of undecided people. That's why it's very fluid, and it won't wind up this way.
These are registered Republicans or people leaning Republican. We don't ask Democrats.
I know, but the people in the poll will also tell you they aren't firmly decided yet. They're leaning, and they ask them to, who would you support now if you had to make a choice, even though you're undecided? So it really is a poll of largely undecided people. I do think, though, that it's going to shift. And my prediction is come January, we will be right in the mix, and there will be 4 or 5 people that can possibly win Iowa. And I predict that you won't know till late in the evening who wins Iowa.
I know the next Republican debate is, in a couple of weeks or so. It's a CNBC debate. They're going to have 2 tiers, one starting at 6 p.m., one's the lower tier, one starting at 8 p.m. If you're not at 3% or so nationally in the most recent polls, you're going to go into the second tier. If they put you in the second tier, will you participate?
We've already seen the numbers, and we know we'll be in the first tier.
They've already told you?
Well, we've already seen the numbers. There's maybe 1 or 2 polls left, and we're averaging well above the cutoff.
The cutoff's 3%.
I think cutoff's at 3, and we're way above the cutoff. In fact, mathematically, I don't think there's a way we can go below 3, even if we wouldn't show up in the most polls. But our poll numbers seem to be ticking up, and as more people see that I'm the only voice really for not going back to war in Iraq on the Republican side, there are Republicans who don't think war should be the first resort and are somewhat reticent to go back into Iraq.
So you're in it at least for now, right?
We're in it for the long haul. We have planned and we have organized in all 50 states. I wouldn't waste 2 years of my life trying to put this message out if I didn't plan on being there when they voted. So we plan on being there when they vote.
And you don't think it's going to hurt your effort to get reelected as a U.S. Senator?
No, so far no one's running against me. So it's hard to think that I'm struggling when no one's running against me yet. So no, I still spend a lot of time in Kentucky. That's where I live, in Bowling Green. But I also spend a lot of time voting and doing my job as a U.S. Senator. So I hope the people in Kentucky will see that I'm trying to give Kentucky